The time by Caracas is 6 p.m. and this is CBX Business News. The business news headlines are brought to you by CBX Wealth Management, making more possible. Cyber risks grow, Guyana's boom, and Canada holds rates. Good evening and welcome to CBX Business News for Thursday, July 16, 2026. I'm Rashel Moncrieffe. Thanks for joining us. Coming up, artificial intelligence is fueling a new wave of cyber threats, with growing concerns over the risks facing Jamaican businesses as attacks become more sophisticated. Also ahead, Guyana has become a net importer of labor as rapid economic expansion drives demand for workers beyond its local labor force. And later, the Bank of Canada leaves interest rates unchanged, saying the Canadian economy is regaining momentum despite persistent global uncertainty. Stay with us as we unpack these stories and more right after the break.
Wealth is not simply counted in dollars or cents, but in the time we spend with love, in love, giving love. Wealth is not simply a means to an end. It is the means to live out loud. Wealth is more than money. It's about family, the memories you create, the legacy you leave behind, and your ability to enjoy life in the moment. It's also about seeing the CBX possibilities and seizing investment opportunities to achieve the future you want and deserve. Which is why CBX Wealth will focus on your investments so you can experience more. Because true wealth is truly more. To start investing today, call 876-926-7767.
The local news is brought to you by Derrimon Trading, better from the start. The Development Bank of Jamaica, facilitating economic growth and development. Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances, tease the senses, and Pulse Investments. Welcome back to CBX Business News. We begin with the growing business risks posed by AI. Artificial intelligence, AI, is changing the cybersecurity landscape for businesses as companies embrace the technology, while cyber criminals increasingly use it to launch faster and more sophisticated attacks. New data from cybersecurity firm Fortinet shows Jamaica recorded 5.4 million attempted cyber attacks during the first quarter of 2026. The company says AI and automation are helping attackers identify vulnerable systems and accelerate attacks. The financial stakes are also rising. Fortinet says cyber attacks are no longer simply an AI issue, noting that data breaches can cost businesses millions of dollars, while organizations in the Caribbean often take longer to recover, increasing both financial losses and operational disruption. The company warns that organizations adopting AI without adequate cybersecurity controls risk exposing new vulnerabilities. Banking, government, and business operations remain among the sectors most frequently targeted by cybercriminals in Jamaica and across the wider Caribbean. Fortinet says the findings underscore the need for cybersecurity to be treated as a strategic business priority, with greater attention from senior management as companies expand their use of artificial intelligence. The government is exploring whether Jamaica can source petroleum more cheaply from suppliers closer to home as new opportunities emerge across the region. The discussions come as Petrojam works to recover losses accumulated after cushioning consumers from sharp increases in international oil prices. Energy Minister Daryl Vaz says developments in Venezuela, Guyana, and other nearby markets could give Jamaica access to oil at lower costs than it currently pays.
What I can say is that whereas we want to recover, obviously, over time, we have our duty and a responsibility to protect the consumers because obviously oil affects everything else. And obviously we've been doing that and doing that well. But there's a flip side to it, that while we have the ability to adjust our pricing mechanism, which we have done already, and there's different scales, we hope that we don't have to go to the highest scale because obviously that will be disastrous in terms of the effect on inflation and everything else. But the bottom line on the other side, with what has happened in Venezuela recently and what's happening in Guyana and right around us, there are many discussions that are taking place right now with a view of the possibility of getting oil much cheaper than we are buying right now in other jurisdictions.
That was Energy Minister Daryl Vaz speaking in Parliament. Meanwhile, questions over governance of Jamaica's state-owned oil refinery Petrojam also surfaced at the same parliamentary session as concerns were raised over whether the company's new general manager Danville Walker could face a conflict of interest on account of his previous work in the petroleum industry. The issue comes just weeks after Walker assumed the role on July 1, succeeding former General Manager Telroy Morgan. Responding to the concerns, Minister Vaz insists the recruitment process followed the appropriate governance procedures.
This matter was raised yesterday in Parliament in question and answers by the opposition in terms of possible conflict of interest, as Mr. Walker did work with a petroleum company previously. I want to make it clear that that matter in terms of the employment is an administrative matter dealt with by the board of the Petrojam. Neither the minister or the ministry gets involved in that process. And in my usual style, I reinforce to the board to follow every step by step, to make sure that there is full transparency and accountability when and if the question is asked, which it has already been asked. So I want to make that very clear.
That was Jamaica's Energy Minister Daryl Vaz at Wednesday's post-cabinet press briefing. Turning now to the petroleum market. Fuel prices increased across most major categories on Thursday. Automotive diesel rose by $12.50 to $219 per liter, while both 87 and 90 gasoline increased by $3.06, ending the week at $201.34 and $208.77 respectively. Propane went up by $1.89 to $77.71, while kerosene increased by $4.50 to $191.92. Butane also rose by $1.89 to $86.68. Ultra-low sulfur diesel also recorded a significant increase, climbing $12.50 to $234.59 per liter. We go now to updates from the Bank of Jamaica on how the currency markets traded today. In Thursday's currency trading session, the US dollar is selling for $159.30, the Canadian for $113.63, the pound sterling for $213.59, while the going rate for the euro is $181.59. We move to the latest updates from the JSE equities. In Thursday's trading session, the JSE market activity resulted in the trading of 107 stocks, of which 45 advanced, 48 declined, and 14 traded firm. Leading the winners are Tropical Battery Company, Blue Power Group, AMG Packaging and Paper Company, and Caribbean Cream. While leading the losers are Knutsford Express Services, Iron Rock Insurance Company, Qantas Advantage Incorporated USD, and Margaritaville Turks. The main index declined by 2,624.49 points to close at 361,598.68 points. The junior market index advanced by 18.43 points to close at 3,010.19 points. It's time for the Market Education feature, brought to you by CARICRIS, Regional Ratings, Global Standards. In today's Market Education feature, we're discussing business to consumer, or B2C. Business to consumer refers to the direct sale of products or services from a business to an individual customer. The B2C model grew rapidly during the rise of online shopping in the late 1990s, and today includes everything from e-commerce websites to mobile shopping apps. As consumer preferences continue to evolve, B2C remains a key business model, allowing companies to connect directly with customers and deliver products and services more efficiently. That was the Market Education feature, brought to you by CARICRIS, Regional Ratings, Global Standards. And that's it for the local news segment. Please stay with us. The regional news is up next. Local news is brought to you by Derrimon Trading, better from the start. The Development Bank of Jamaica, facilitating economic growth and development. Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances, Tease the Senses, and Pulse Investments.
Has so much book you need for high school?
I'll show you how to make sure you have all the money for my books and even some extra. It's called budgeting, Dad. Making a budget is the most important thing you can do to track your money. It keeps a record of how much you make, how much you spend, where you spend it, and most importantly, how much you can save. Write down all your income, write down all your expenses, see where you can cut down and allot more money to more important things, like saving.
Welcome back. And now for the regional business news. Guyana's rapid economic expansion is driving such strong demand for labor that the country has become a net importer of workers. This comes as President Dr. Irfan Ali reveals the government is accelerating investment in infrastructure and key growth sectors. Speaking during an engagement with members of the Guyanese diaspora in St. Lucia, Dr. Ali says the pace of development is creating opportunities not only for Guyanese, but also for skilled workers and investors from across the region.
Today we are an importer of workers. The pace of development and speed of transformation requires workers that we don't possess in our natural labor force.
Ali says the government is pressing ahead with investments in strategic industries as it works to position Guyana as a globally competitive economy while supporting long-term growth.
We're working towards positioning Guyana as a world-class hub, health hub, energy hub, environmental services hub, and food security hub. And we are moving leaps and bounds. An important part of the work that we're doing is also the changing the mindset, creating stronger families, stronger communities. And how do we do that? Filling out recreational facilities, parks, community infrastructure, security, looking at street lights, the National Safety Program, Safe Country Program.
That was President of Guyana, Dr. Irfan Ali. Meanwhile, the government of Guyana has injected more than $2.76 billion Guyanese dollars into its rice industry to help farmers weather weak global prices and protect one of the country's key agricultural export sectors. More than 5,100 rice farmers are benefiting from the government's First Crop 2026 support program, which provides direct cash assistance based on the number of acres cultivated. Agriculture Minister Zulfikar Mustafa says the initiative is intended to cushion the impact of lower international rice prices while supporting continued production and growth across the sector. Farmers cultivating 50 acres or less are receiving 15,000 Guyanese dollars per acre, while larger producers receive $10,000 per acre. Nearly 235,000 acres of rice cultivation are covered under the program. Minister Mustafa says more than $2.76 billion has already been distributed to thousands of farmers and has pledged continued support as the industry navigates ongoing pressure in global rice markets. And just over a week after unveiling a revised reparations framework during a CARICOM forum in St. Lucia, the CARICOM Reparations Commission says the regional reparations movement is shifting from securing acknowledgement of historical injustice to pursuing financial commitments for the Caribbean's long-term economic development. Speaking during a CARICOM reparations media briefing in London on Tuesday, Chairman Professor Sir Hilary Beckles says the reparations movement has gained momentum, with several institutions increasingly acknowledging their historical role in slavery. He says the Commission's focus is now on converting those acknowledgements into negotiations and reparatory initiatives that address the lasting economic damage of slavery and colonialism.
In recent months, we have had an avalanche of apologies. We have had governments that participated in this crime offering apologies. We have had corporations, institutions, private sector, high street companies, churches, and families that were directly enriched offering apologies. We can call this phase one, the age of apologies. Phase two is now the conversion of these apologies into programs of action for reparatory justice.
Beckles says the next phase is to secure programs and investments that help close development gaps and assist in repairing the economic consequences of slavery across the Caribbean and the wider African diaspora.
That case has now been made, and the advocacy around the case, as far as we are concerned, is over. We are now entering the second stage of this movement. And this second stage is the stage of negotiation. This is the stage of negotiations in which global Africa would be calling to the table a conversation around the issue of how we repair the consequences of this crime.
That was Chairman of the CARICOM Reparations Commission, Professor Sir Hilary Beckles. It's now time for news from the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 21 securities, of which 8 advanced, 3 declined, and 10 traded firm. Leading today's winners are National Flour Mills, A.S. Bryden & Sons Holdings, MedCorp Limited, and Trinidad and Tobago NGL. While the losers are Angostura Holdings, Unilever Caribbean, and National Enterprises. Trading activity resulted in the following movements. The All-TNT Index advanced by 7.15 points to close at 1,459.32. The Composite Index gained 3.72 points to close at 1,020.14. However, the cross-listed index remained at 77.06, while the SME index rose 1.92 points to close at 81.05. And we take a short break, but please do stay with us. The international news segment is up next.
This project marks a celebration of our 30th Hall of Fame and aims to highlight the achievements, challenges, and invaluable lessons of those who have shaped and are shaping the future of our economy. Our aim is to celebrate the voices and stories of 30 remarkable leaders in Jamaica's private sector. Join us as we explore these narratives of resilience, leadership, and vision.
Welcome back. In international news, the Bank of Canada has kept its benchmark interest rate unchanged at 2.25%, saying the Canadian economy is showing renewed signs of growth despite ongoing global uncertainty. Speaking at the Monetary Policy Report briefing on Wednesday, Governor Tiff Macklem says economic activity has resumed after stagnating over the past year, despite uncertainty surrounding U.S. trade policy.
The Governing Council has maintained the policy interest rate at 2.25%. We have three key messages. First, after stalling over the past year, economic growth looks to have resumed in Canada. While U.S. trade policy continues to be a headwind, consumers have been resilient and businesses are adapting.
The central bank also expects inflation to ease in the coming months, provided global oil prices retreat from recent highs. Macklem cautioned, however, that renewed conflict in the Middle East and ongoing trade negotiations with the United States continue to pose risks to the economic outlook.
Second, inflation in Canada is poised to ease, provided global oil prices decline from elevated levels. And third, uncertainty remains high. The conflict in the Middle East has re-escalated in recent days, and trade discussions with the United States remain ongoing.
Meanwhile, the central bank says it stands ready to act if energy prices begin fueling broader inflation. The Bank of Canada says it remains prepared to raise interest rates if higher oil prices begin feeding into broader inflation across the economy. Governor Macklem says policymakers removed an earlier reference to consecutive rate hikes because oil prices have eased from their April highs and inflation pressures remain concentrated in gasoline prices. However, he warned that a sustained rise in oil prices could spread into the cost of other goods and services, requiring higher interest rates to return inflation to the bank's 2% target.
We outlined a scenario where oil prices were high and they stayed high. And what we indicated is in that scenario, if that happens, the likelihood that higher oil prices start to pass through to prices of other goods and services, inflation becomes more generalized and starts to become more persistent. And we indicated in that scenario, yes, we would likely need at least consecutive hikes in interest rates to get inflation back to our target.
That was Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem. In commodity markets, gold prices slipped toward $4,000 an ounce Thursday, approaching their lowest level since November 2025, as rising geopolitical tensions boosted oil prices and strengthened expectations that interest rates could remain higher for longer. Renewed strikes involving the United States and Iran heightened concerns about possible disruptions to shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, sending crude oil prices to one-month highs. Higher energy prices have reinforced expectations that the Federal Reserve could maintain a tighter monetary policy stance, reducing demand for non-yielding assets such as gold. Markets are currently pricing in about a 51% chance of a September rate increase. And finally, new U.S. data showed inventories continued to build in May. Business inventories in the United States increased for a second consecutive month in May, although the pace of stockpiling slowed across the economy. Inventories rose 0.3% from April, matching market expectations, but slowing from an upwardly revised 0.6% increase the previous month. Growth moderated across wholesalers, manufacturers, and retailers. On an annual basis, business inventories were 3.1% higher than in May 2025. And that's it for the international segment of the newscast. The news recap is coming up on the other side of the break.
Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances Limited has been a part of Jamaica's manufacturing landscape for over 20 years. By crafting unique flavors and fragrances, we have become a part of your favorite household and food items, such as beverages, ice cream, household cleaners, and much more. Known throughout the Caribbean for the highest quality, we continue to innovate with strong leadership, a dedicated team with integrity. We go the extra mile for our customers. Create the next taste sensation. Contact us at 876-9235-111 or visit our website, Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn pages.
We're here to open a savings account for my son John. I really want him to start saving and managing his own money.
And I need for Save to visit my father in New York.
Okay, based on what you said and our risk assessment, he will qualify for simplified customer due diligence requirements. I'll need your ID, proof of income, TRN, and John's ID as well.
Okay, here you go.
Opening an account is easier than you think using simplified customer due diligence requirements, also called CDD.
And now to recap our top stories. In the local news, AI fuels growing cyber threats to Jamaican businesses. Regionally, Guyana becomes net importer of labor as economy expands. And internationally, Bank of Canada holds rates and sees the economy regaining momentum. Those were the stories making today's CBX Evening News. On behalf of the entire production team, I'm Rashel Moncrieffe. Thanks for watching CBX, your region, your business, your source.
I'm Livingston Morrison, CEO of the Jamaica Stock Exchange Group. You're watching CBX, your region, your business, your source.
The Caribbean Business Exchange now presents the local feature from the Jamaica Information Service. Pleasant viewing.
Welcome. You're tuned in to Jamaica Magazine and I'm Theodore Henry. It's World Youth Skills Day, observed under the theme Skills for a Shared Future. With that in mind, today's program highlights the importance of equipping children and young people with the knowledge, tools and opportunities they need to develop skills that will serve them throughout their lives. So if you're looking to discover more ways to help the children in your care learn and grow and prepare for the future, stay with us. We have an informative lineup ahead.